That doesn't look good. 2.2 volts on the 12-volt rail does not seem good.
Tales of weird stuff presents. SGI Indigo troubleshooting.
Even though I have always been a really big fan of SGI computers, I only have 2 of them in my collection. The O2 previously featured on this channel, and this Indigo. Now, I bought this at an estate sale pretty recently with no idea what was in it, no idea what condition it is, just a hope that it was going to be something cool. My hope is that my hope is that it works. But my other hope is that this is an R4000-based system, which would make it the first 64-bit processor system that SGI ever shipped. Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's dig this thing open.
All right, the next SGI system on the table, the Indigo. Now this is quite a bit taller and just generally larger. It's maybe not quite as large in this dimension as the O2, but it's definitely wider and taller. And I put the scale away, but it also is pretty hefty. I know nothing about what's inside this O2. I purchased this at the same estate sale where I got the giant 88-pound DEC Alpha, and I saw this in the pictures for the sale, and that was why I went and lined up, because I wanted this. But I know nothing about it. The only thing I've been able to infer 2 things by looking at the back and seeing the cards that are in here. It does not have the lowest end graphics. So this card either is capable of 3D acceleration, or at least what passed for 3D acceleration when this device came out. And I can tell by peeking in here, I'm pretty sure that this is the R4000 version. So that's already super great. I actually just noticed that, and that's why I'm smiling so much. I don't feel like I have a lot of use for an R3000-based SGI system, and I definitely don't have use for one that can't do any sort of 3D acceleration. I also don't have use for one that I cannot possibly get to work, and so I do not know if this works. My intention is to take it apart, look inside of it, do some basic testing on the power supply, and then try to turn it on. I will not be able to do very much with it. The keyboard connector, let's flip it back. The keyboard connector on it is the shape and size of a PS2 connector, but it is not PS2. It is something different, and it is one like ADB or I can't remember what the keyboard connector bus is on Sun computers, where the mouse plugs into the keyboard and then plugs into the computer. People have come up with some devices so that you can use PS2 keyboard and mouse with this. I may end up building one of those if I keep this. We'll see. That's step 93, and we're on step 1. So let's. So the first step is I want to tear this thing apart, and as per usual, I have not looked up anything about this, but also I know that SGI systems are. Oh wow, that is really dirty. So it is for sure going to need it clean. Oh, the other reason why I won't be able to do much with it is not only do I not have a keyboard and mouse for it, but I can tell just by looking at it that it does not have a hard drive. So at the best case would be that it could boot up to the SGI's equivalent of the BIOS screen, and be able to see what's going on there. Okay. Now I think, ooh, Nelly. Oh, I'm already happy. So this does not appear to come out. I am already happy. All right. So what is the way to... So this is the CPU board. There's basically two boards in these. There's a CPU board and a graphics board that plug into a backplane through this connector. And I can tell that because this is on a riser, this is the R4000 version, which is pretty awesome. I don't know if there's... Oh, so now that's interesting. The heat sink that is attached to the CPU extends off it and then has fins on both sides. It is possible to upgrade an R3000 version to an R4000. The difference is the board. And supposedly the R4000 versions have a slightly beefier power supply. I don't know that we're going to find out anything more. It is definitely possible that someone who really knows about SGI stuff will be able to tell just by looking at it what CPU board, what CPU card this is. I'm going to remove it and see if there are any markings on the other side. And then we can also get a good look at the other side of the board and what's underneath it. Because I can tell there are a bunch of really large chips underneath it. All right, so what does this say? So it does have a part number on here. Oh, and there is... What the heck? Kind of. So I know that these also will have problems booting up if the battery is dead. And I believe that's the battery. And I don't... Okay, so it's held on with this plastic rivet, maybe? This is weird. I am not gonna monkey with that for now. This also has a Motorola 56000 DSP that handles audio. And I wonder if that is programmable from user mode at all, because I am sure that people in the Atari Falcon community have found all kinds of neat things to do with the 56000 DSP, because the Atari Falcon has one of those. So this has got 2/3 of the RAM slots are filled, and I think this board just takes regular parity 72-pin SIMs, but don't quote me on that. Leading up to this, I looked up a lot of stuff about a lot of different old SGI computers. I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and a bunch of the bunnies got jumbled in my head. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as it is. And then I'm going to extract the graphics board. Oh, this is awesome. I am stoked. So, yes, the graphics card is, if you really want to get down to it, is bigger than the computer. It's bigger than the motherboard. Okay, so I'm going to have to remove some things to be able to look at some stuff. This is the video memory. There are 3 separate memory modules for red, green, and blue. I don't know if they're actually accessed like that. If there's only one module, then it can only do paletted 8-bit color. If there's 3 modules, it can do 24-bit RGB. So that's the first awesome thing. The second awesome thing is this, with this huge pile. Some people incorrectly, I've seen a number of articles on the internet that incorrectly say that this is texture memory. There is no texture memory. There is no texture mapping hardware. Any texture mapping done through OpenGL on this computer is done by this R4000 CPU. This huge thing with all of this memory module on it. This is the Z-buffer hardware. So this is with this you can do 3D. At least the minimum layer that it takes for me to consider it being 3D. Now what I don't know, now underneath these boards, which I'm going to very carefully remove. So basically this is the minimum configuration that for me to be interested in wanting to keep it. So I'm very much hoping that I can get this working, and if I can, I will for sure keep this because it is cool. Carefully. Okay, how do I do this without damaging? Okay. So it looks like, okay. And I don't think, alright. How do I, so this is not bolted down? How is this attached? Because what I want to look at is underneath this board. And I can see that it's a mix of good news, bad news. Okay. So these sockets here, oh, that is so interesting. Okay. These are the geometry. As far as I'm aware, these are the geometry accelerators. They handle doing all the geometry processing. I believe they handle doing OpenGL display list processing. I'm not 100% sure. And this board can have up to 4 of them. This is then the lowest end version. It only has 1. There are a couple people on the internet who do have these chips available for sale. If I can get this working, I may try to get some additional ones just to improve the geometry performance. They are labeled GE7 for geometry engine, and this is RE3, which I'm gonna assume is rasterization engine. So then, okay, so there's some additional RAM here, so it's possible. So I'm gonna speculate, and I'm gonna speculate based on my knowledge of OpenGL and old graphics processors handled it. I'm going to guess that this is the main bus interface command processor, and that this RAM is for storing commands and buffers. This is possibly where display list processing would get done. It's going to do geometry processing here, rasterization tasks, and then you've got Z-buffer memory and Z-buffer handling as an add-on. Okay, so this is cool, and all of this looks really good. There are no capacitors. Are there any capacitors on any of this? This is there are. So these little, well, that's interesting. These red box guys are labeled 3.3 microfarad 50-B. So those are capacitors, and I don't see any indication that they have leaked. So I think that those are probably solid. I feel like there's a good chance this might just work. It is, the inside of it though is nasty. There is no other word for it. It is nasty. So, as per usual, I'm going to take it out to the... Oh, gosh, and there's so much dust. So I'm going to see if I can tip this up and let you see what I am seeing. So, oh, yeah, there's woefully inadequate light. Although you can see up here, it's pretty filthy. Maybe if I could tip this a certain way. I don't know, maybe like this. It's very dirty in here, where it's been open to the elements. This has been stored in someone's garage for who knows how long. The people used to live down in the Bay Area, and it was the most over-the-top collection of old Unix computers I have ever seen outside of a museum. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And so they got a lot of the stuff at places like Weird Stuff Warehouse and other kinds of things. And then at some point they moved up here and brought the collection with them. And now it has been dispersed and I got some of it. So it looks like that is a weird backplane in there for connecting SCSI devices. So I will probably, when I do try to get an operating system on this, which I am not sure what the proper method is for installing an operating system on here. Presumably back in the day, it would have been from tape, but I am not going to hold out hope that that tape drive works, or that I can find operating system install media on tape. So hopefully it will be able to boot from CD-ROM, and I can just hook up an external hard drive, external CD-ROM, and go that way. All right, I am going to take a trip out to the garage with this to hit it with the air compressor, because I don't want any more of that in here than is already in here. I will bring this back in. I will have to find the 13W3 cable, because as you can see, not on there. On here, this does use 13W3, and its particular configuration is different than the Sun is, so I'll have to find the jumper setting sheet so that I can reconfigure the cable for SGI instead of Sun. There's like 3 set of dip switch settings on it, one for Sun, one for IBM, and then one for SGI. I do know that the monitor that I use, this Dell monitor, for all of its faults and all of its crappiness, it does support sync on green, which is what all SGI computers use. So I have every confidence that if this thing lights up a display, that display will be able to handle it. Okay. All right. Let's, I'm going to get on with it. All right. So I'm not going to go so far as to say that it's clean, but it is way cleaner. Like previously, all of these vents in here were completely clogged with dust. Like you had to infer that there were vents there by the patterns of the dust. And now it is clear there is an airway. Likewise on the back, like the power supply fan, you can see into the power supply now. There are still some little bits hanging about. I was in the garage for a long time sending air through this thing from the back, the front, everywhere I could, and I was looking at it, and I think to get it really clean, I would have to take this outer plastic shell off, and it is not obvious to me how to do that. I think I'm going to wait to go to those lengths until I'm feeling that's the last mile kind of cleanups and refurbishing. What I did notice is, this is just a regular SCSI sled, and so what I'm going to do, so actually I could just take this tape drive out, and I could just mount a SCSI hard drive of some sort to this when the system's in use. One thing I was looking at though is I for sure want to test the power supply, and you can kind of see down in there the connectors, these connectors. I don't know what that pinout is. I have no idea what those are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this tape drive from the sled so that I can get at the Molex connector on here with the probes on my multimeter and at least check the 5-volt and the 12-volt rails. I don't know what other voltages this might generate for various things. I'm guessing it's probably just 5 and 12. I mean, at this time period, I don't think they were using other voltages particularly. It's kind of in that middle phase where 5 volts was king, right? You didn't need -5 or -12 for weird RAM or ROM chips or any kind of shenanigans like that. And, you know, it was before voltages started to drop and you started, you know, 3-volt CPUs and things like that. So I think if I can check, well, one, if I can check that the power supply even comes on, and that'll be, let's be honest, that's the first hurdle. I would not expect for there to be any REFA capacitors, so I'm not anticipating any kind of fireworks. What is this? Also goes into that. That is... Oh, okay. That's... That is interesting. So, looking at how these jumpers look, my guess would be that these set the SGI ID. So maybe the... Why does that come off of that? So those are all black wires, and it doesn't look like all of them have connectors in there. So maybe this configures the SGI ID? I don't know. That is interesting. I mean, I can look up this kind of tape drive and figure out, you know, what those pins are. There's also a big block of switches here, so those could be for setting the SGI ID. Interesting. All right. Well, let's set this up. I'm gonna just put it in here, and then I'm gonna put this in because I don't. It sits far enough back that I don't think I will be able to. So, all right. So I think that is in all the way. The power switch on the back is still off. Okay. Does this come out easily somehow? Difficult to say. Although, knowing SGI, it probably does. Okay. So, it came on. I'm getting 5 volts, which is good. What is maybe not good is the power supply fan does not seem to have come on. Okay. Let's reconfigure this around. Let's check out 12 volts. Oh. That doesn't look good. 2.2 volts on the 12 volt rail does not seem good. I don't know what to make of that. Well, I am sure that there is a way to get the power supply out. And it really seems like it wants to come out. I'm just kind of debating about, do I want to go ahead and proceed? I think I'm going to proceed as is. I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm gonna put this back together. I'm gonna put the power supply isn't over voltaging, so I don't feel concerned that it's going to fry something, but I also have dramatically reduced confidence that it will work if it's not. But it could also be that it doesn't, you know, not really knowing anything about these systems per se, specifically about these systems, that could be normal behavior, right? It could be that the power supply doesn't fully light up until the computer tells it to, right? Until it gets a little bit of some kind of signal back from the computer. I don't know. So I'm going to just put all this stuff back together. It's not overvolting, so I'm going to keep telling myself that it's not overvolting, so it's unlikely to make anything. It's unlikely to let out any magic smoke. Power supply servicing is not the two things that I feel least confident in doing is CRT servicing, followed very, very closely by power supply servicing. I do not feel confident about either of those things. I'm not concerned that I'm going to hurt myself. I am more concerned that I will either not make things better for the computer, for the device in question, or will make things worse for the device in question. What am I doing wrong here? I feel like I have this. Oh yeah, upside down. But that is a giant, a giant graphics card. And that clip does not seem to want to cooperate. I don't want to force it. There we go. And it seems I was right to not force it. Okay. No anxiety about this. No, sir. None at all. All right. I do need to go find the cable and the sheet that explains how to set the switches on the cable so that I can hook it up to video, and then I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to go for broke. I don't know for sure that the 13W3 adapter is configured properly. I couldn't find the actual piece of paper that came with it. I found some documentation online that for the settings that were listed for Sun matches how this was configured. So I'm guessing that it's for the same thing because there's a bunch of these different kinds of cables out there. There were a lot of different possible settings for SGI. So I configured it for the sync on green settings. I believe that these also chime, just like the O2 chimes when it and Macs, make a sound when they get to a certain point in the startup process. So I'm gonna just, with much anxiety, I'm gonna flip the power switch. Oh, so now, oh, that's. Well, that was interesting. Okay, so something is happening on the screen. It doesn't look good. The chime was good news. That's excellent. I wonder if this that we're seeing on the screen here is just because the cable isn't properly configured. There are some other switch settings, so I'm gonna go through all of them and until I find one that works. I'm gonna do that off camera though because it's gonna be annoying. After trying a bunch of different things, I am fully stumped. I tried the way the settings are listed on the information for the cable is a little bit confusing. There are 3 different settings, one for sync on green, one for sync on composite, and one for HV sync. And so there are a bunch of switches that are supposed to be on or off. And then there's a bunch of other switches that it says can be on or off. So I went through and was trying a bunch of those, thinking that those were maybe how the monitor would communicate to the computer what video modes it was capable of. So I went through all of the different syncs, and they all gave various flavors of the weird garbled screen with the flashing. And so then I tried adjusting those other switches, and now no matter what settings, I just get a black screen. Now when I hit the reset button here, this LED will come on and it will blink and it will chime, and that's that. All that I will get on the display is nothing. It turns off because it's not getting any sync. So did I fry something by screwing around with the cable like that? That seems odd. I would not. Seems odd and surprising. I guess it's possible that pushing on it, I may have unseated something. I tried pushing opening this and pushing the cards back in. I mean, maybe I could try fully reseating this, the graphics card. Although I would think then it wouldn't make happy sounds. It wouldn't make the regular chime, and it would blink that oh whoops. It would blink that LED with anger. So the board definitely feels warm. And everything is Oh. So which camera do I find? So this was, well, that wasn't like, anyway, it was partially unseated. And that didn't have screws in it. It was the other one that had screws. So I'm going to find, I suspect that is the reason for the black screen. Let me see, does that screw work? I'm going to put at least one screw in to prevent that happening again. Yes, that screw will work. All right, so I'm going to put that in there. That should prevent that happening. Or maybe I'm just... Okay. All right, well, it was just that the board had come unseated, and so I find it surprising then that it was not somehow complaining at me that that something was wrong. Okay, so let's try that again. I guess then I can go back. Oh, good grief. It really doesn't want to go back in. Okay, there we go. Wow, this is not my favorite mechanism for cards and computers. Okay, is everyone happy now? Okay, so I'm gonna plug this cable back in and see if that at least gets me back to the flashing screen. And it warns to do not operate system with front cover removed. I'm assuming because the power supply is blowing air through and the air is coming out, so it needs that for proper airflow. Oh, so the monitor's... All right, well, this is completely different still. I will do this kind of old school way. So on this particular monitor, the blue light here will go off if it's out of sync. So it thinks it's got a signal, but nothing on the screen. So it goes off and then comes back. And it acts like it wants to be friends. I'm going to try to set this down instead of freehanding it here. So I don't know what that means. All right. Good times were had by none. Okay. I don't know what that means, but I don't know what that means. I'm not even gonna speculate. And now the amber light on the front is on and solid. So I think it was complaining at me by having the that little LED go out. That was its passive aggressive way of telling me that something was not good for it. Okay, I'm gonna go back off camera and tinker around some more, and maybe. Man, I just want to see something on the freaking screen. It's so close. Okay. So, reading the fine manual is educational. So it specifically says, solid amber LED, CPU board or graphics board failure. Wah, wah. So scrolling down, blinking amber LED, solid amber LED with no error message.꯫ Without blinking or turning green, the memory is working, but some other part is faulty. If you hear a big bing sound from the speaker, the graphics board has failed the test. Make sure the board is seated properly. So, it's been doing that since the get-go? Well, I don't know about the LED. I never looked at the LED at the beginning. So maybe that graphics board is just faulty. I'm looking, is there anything else interesting here? If you get a message, yes. If you get a message, and the message will tell you what to do. Okay, I'm gonna double check that graphics board, make sure that I put everything back together properly and got everything all seated and all that. And maybe just that board is bad. I don't know. Does it? I wonder. It appears on the screen. So I wonder if a lot of old Unix computers like this will also send out messages out to one of the TTYs, one of the serial ports. The serial ports on this are unusual. I think they might be RS-422 like Macs used to use. So I don't know. It may be difficult to find a cable so that I can hook up something to use as a serial terminal on this. Okay, more troubleshooting. This we may be reaching a sad conclusion of this story that just the graphics board is dead, and that would be very sad for me. All right, I'm gonna try a couple more things and see if I can figure anything else out. So I have a different result now. On a lark, I removed the Z-buffer board and 2 of the video RAM modules. And now it's at least trying to boot. It's doing something. So that graphics board isn't totally dead. That's good. So, okay, so the next thing I'm going to try, so it's gonna continue to fail at the clock because the battery is dead. So I'm gonna try taking that board out and putting the board back in. I'm just gonna reseat these memory modules. It could just be that the module wasn't in properly. Maybe that was the whole problem, and we might be in great. I'm gonna add the 2 memory modules, which I'm pointing at that you can't see. I'm going to add the 2 memory modules first. and do this test again, and then I will add the Z buffer board back, try this test again, and see what can happen. This is great news because it means that almost all of the system is working, and the parts that are potentially not working are replaceable. That is terrific. I am super happy about that. The next thing that I tested after having a working configuration was putting the Z buffer board back in. That also worked. So by process of elimination, it seems like the most likely candidate is that one of the memory modules is bad. So using the 8-bit mode with a single memory module, I just tried them one at a time, and this memory module is bad. If I put this memory module in as the only memory module on the video board, I get the black screen. I mean, if this is connected at all, I get the black screen. So that's, it's not great. It's not great to have any of the components go bad. But I feel like of any of the bespoke components for this system, having one of the memory modules be bad is the least tragic. So I'm going to... I think that's going to be it for now for this system. I'm going to try to either build an adapter. Well, first I'm going to try to sort out this clock issue, which is just the battery needs replacing. The battery that was on that board looks really weird. So that's going to be a project. So I'll have to replace the battery. And then from there, I should be able to, use this drive sled to get a SCSI drive installed in here, and I should be able to boot some kind of installation media. No. After the clock, so that it can get past this, I need to come up with a keyboard somehow. So I have found some plans for various kind of Arduino-based adapter boards that will allow you to use a PS2, use a PS2 keyboard with this. So if I could just get keyboard working, and then installation media, blah blah, and then if I can get it booted, if I can get a system loaded, then I will try to track down a replacement memory module. I mean, there isn't anything obviously wrong with this chip. Like, there's no bent pins, there's no leaking capacitors or anything like that. But like with the bad memory module that I had on the O2, it could be any tiny component. It could be static discharged, fried one of the RAM chips. It could be a lot of things, and I will likely never know. So I will just need to track down a replacement for this memory module. If you've enjoyed this video, this journey, and it's been a roller coaster ride, I would really appreciate if you would click the like button. If you would like to see the follow-up adventures, whenever they may be, I have no problem. Someday, if you'd like to see the follow-up adventures of this SGI Indigo, I encourage you to click the subscribe button. And until next time, try to remember the good stuff.